Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. We're going to be covering episode 10 and 11 of the Bad Batch. And sorry guys, I kind of lost my voice this last week, so I'm going to sound a little funky this week, but you guys care more about the content than how I sound, so we'll continue on. A little bit of news, Kathleen Kennedy, she re-signed her contract, so she's going to be on for a little bit longer. What are your thoughts about Kathleen Kennedy sticking on? Or were you kind of hoping about her
Wasn't there
disappearing?
Okay, so there was rumors I'm hearing that she resigned or something like that, or is that a bunch of BS?
That's been a bunch of rumors for the last 10 years.
I know, that's all I was saying. Because people have their complaints, they have their beefs with her. I have some things that I don't like about her. I obviously I don't like the treatment of the sequel trilogy. I don't like some of the direction of her female leads that she seems to be all about. I do like female leads. I love female leads that have a good balance and a good grounding of story. And
naturally, we have Leia, we have Sigourney Weaver from Aliens, Tomb Raider. We have so many lead female characters that just aren't for us, and I feel like in today's society, it's just a little bit too much out there.
Mara Jade was an awesome female character.
I would love to see Mara Jade come up in the sequels.
I think we're just going off about these females. Kathleen Kennedy, she clearly has a thing for the female characters, and I think it's really cool. I think it's awesome, especially for a lot of the younger female generation. I think it gives them somebody to look forward to, and I completely support that. I'm all about that. It just, have it make sense. Does that make sense? They'll just make them awesome just because they're a girl. Establish the story, make them cool, make it have reason and depth and ground. I mean, don't just throw it out there. Just, it's a girl, so she's gonna be amazing at everything just because. I want to.
Big thing like Leia, Ahsoka.
Yep. Ahsoka's one of my favorite. In fact, I loved Bo-Katan from
and Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan was actually my favorite character in the Mandalorian season so far. I love Bo-Katan's character, the live version of her. She was awesome.
And I'm gonna kind of defend Kathleen Kennedy just a little bit because in the beginning it was a little rough. She kind of took over Star Wars and kind of just going with the times and whatever, and just kind of okay, Disney's in control, so I'm gonna listen to them. And so a lot of it was a lot of political pushes. But as I've seen with The Mandalorian, as they introduce new female roles like Gina Carano's character, Bo-Katan, and Ahsoka, even introducing Ahsoka.
Ahsoka was amazing in the Mandalorian.
They're doing really well with.
Honestly, Mark, the only Echo
3. Echo 2, yeah.
Echo 3.
Sorry, I forgot my number.
Echo 2. It's all good. No worries. Nobody's going to judge you for that. So, I'll be honest. The only female character I really had gripes with was Rey, honestly. I still like Rey.
Rey's the only one I haven't complained about, too.
Yeah. No, the other ones were great. I like
Rose.
I like Jyn Erso was awesome.
Her last Jyn Erso.
Yeah.
Jyn Erso was great, too.
You know what? I actually wasn't a big fan of Rose, but I know it's cliche. I don't care for Rose.
I didn't care for her in The Last Jedi, but I thought
against the sequel trilogy,
J.J. Abrams redeemed her in The Rise of Skywalker.
So, and I don't know if this is J.J. Abrams' fault or if it is a Kathleen Kennedy thing, but I don't know, something about the sequel trilogy. I wasn't too keen on those female roles, but I liked all the other ones. In fact, Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think she's bad at all. I mean, look at some of the amazing
she has a lot
things
of pressure.
Well, look at some of the greatest Star Wars that we have is from the new Lucasfilm generation. The end of Rogue One. Um,
Mm.
look at the freaking finale of Clone Wars. In my opinion, I think that's the best Star Wars we have. Those last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, those are
It's just the
amazing.
sequels that sucked.
Yeah, the
I'm not a sequel
Mandalorians.
hater either, so I don't want a bunch of
Yeah,
hate saying that we're sequel haters. There's a lot that we liked about the sequels,
I'm a sequel
but
hater.
the side stories are probably the most interesting things that they've been able to produce.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do like Force Awakens though. I don't care for the
Force
other two,
Awakens was
but
good. It
I
was a
like
good
Force
start.
Awakens.
I just went downhill
Yeah,
from there,
yeah, it just seemed like it didn't know what it wanted after that. But anyway, we'll get to
basically.
that. It'll be a fun
Yeah,
it'll be a
yeah,
fun
yeah,
talk. But
totally.
anyway, yeah, that's cool. I'm excited. I think she's fine, man. Honestly, she's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, like with Kathleen Kennedy, it was she took over Lucasfilm and kind of, and it's not just Kathleen Kennedy; it's just the whole structure of Lucasfilm is that they were panning to the times. They're
Yeah.
okay. Let's money grab. Let's try and push to the audience as much as we can. By the time we got to Rise of Skywalker, like I've kind of made notices with a lot of the Star Wars Celebrations panels. Force Awakens, Kathleen Kennedy kind of took control over the whole discussion. J.J. Abrams didn't get much.
Mm.
Ryan Johnson got about equal treatment during the discussion on the panel. And then you got to Rise
Mm.
of Skywalker. Kathleen Kennedy was like, nope, J.J. Abrams, you're going to be the main speaker. And J.J. And so I think it was just more of a, we're going to test the waters and see kind of where it goes. And
Mm.
I can kind of see the beginning of Star Wars was owned by Disney. It was a lot of rough patches. But to its current section now, I think that they kind of got a hand of it and they're kind of listening to people a bit more and kind of like realizing, okay, we don't need to push content out there because content's not what's going to get us money.
Yeah,
They're
for sure.
focusing
Of
more on like detail and story, like the High Republic,
course.
like the books and stuff. Big hit, big hit. I didn't think I was going to like them because it was set 200 years before the Phantom Menace, and I was like, okay. So in Phantom Menace, they mentioned that the Sith have been extinct for more than millennia.
Yeah.
So these stories aren't going to be that interesting because it's just going to be a bunch of Jedi dealing with a bunch of smugglers and whatnot. And it's actually a lot more interesting than I thought it would be.
Mm.
And so I'm really excited to see what they do, uh, what they do from here on out.
Yeah.
And so Kevin Kennedy getting sent on, I think, is a good thing only because she's gone through a lot of that criticism and she's kind of learning from it. If she
Sure.
didn't learn
Yeah.
from it,
That's
if she
that's
didn't
that's
learn
good.
from it, I'd be like, oh great, here we go. And just like presidency, like another 4 years
You
of this president.
you could see that she knows what fans want. I mean, again, some of the scenes that we've gotten in this new Disney-owned Star Wars generation, we would never have gotten during the Lucas generation. Again, like
Mandalorian
Rogue
season
One,
2 finale.
Mandalorian season 2 finale. That was absolutely epic. I guess the end of Clone Wars is something I think would have happened, but
That was good too. Season
um,
7, yeah.
oh man. But again, Rogue One, Mandalorian season 2, prime examples of some really good
Oh yeah.
material. I think is solid. 10 out of 10 stuff. Stuff we always talked about wanting to see back in the day as fans before there were shows and before there was more movies than the standard Star Wars episodes, Skywalker episodes. Um, and yeah, it's exciting. I'm super excited about the future. I mean, there's a lot forward to, especially the Obi-Wan show. So,
Yeah, totally. So lots of cool things coming forward. And while if this was announced ages ago, I'd probably been disappointed, but based off the recent content that's been produced through Lucasfilm, I know she's not ahead of a lot of it, and she's adapted and learned a lot. So,
she might be. She's kind of like it's she. I guess you could say, um, listening to your opinion, the way I'm feeling, it's the sort of pattern that Star Wars seems to follow. You always have this. You get this character or this movie that you don't really care for, and then over time it kind of gets better, and you start to accept it, and then you start to love it. Like I don't know, like the prequel
Prequels.
Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Phantom Menace. It's Jar Jar Binks and young Anakin Skywalker and wooden acting, and then you get the Phantom Menace or Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and then you got the sappy love story and crazy amounts of CGI and blah 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 blah. And then you go back and you're like, this is actually kind of cool stuff. This story's actually pretty original, and you start finding things that you really like, and you're like, hey, Anakin's a lot like young Luke in A New Hope, just the way he acts, a little whiny and a little bit of a
Yeah.
crybaby, but he starts to learn, he starts to mature, he starts to grow, and you start kind of appreciating some of those things more over time. So
Yeah. And
anyway,
that's one of the things, like, we really want to, like, push this to every fan that's listening. You're not going to like everything that's produced by Disney. It's going to be a hit or miss. There's some things that you're going to like, there's some things you're going to hate.
yep.
And that's just going to come with the territory with the
No, that's
production.
that's what's I mean, and that's what's cool about having all these projects is out of out of like 10 crappy projects, in your opinion, the opinion of the audience, you're gonna have that one show or that one movie that's your favorite of all of them. So I think it's cool. There's a lot to look forward to. There might be some stuff you don't like, but you're gonna find something that's awesome in there, that you were looking forward to, something that kind of suits your interest. So
Yeah, and one thing that just that kind of end on this quote, Kennedy actually, she's faced criticism over the years, and so this is kind of what she said in the recent board meeting. She said, "You develop a little bit of an armor, but you learn from that. It's kind of like having a continual focus group that's out there telling you things, whether it's what you want to hear or you don't want to hear." And
that's
so
cool.
I feel like she's really kind of like attaching herself to that quote, and I think that's really like big of her to do
Yeah,
because a lot
I
of
think
people
I
would
think
crumble under that pressure, and she's actually handling it a lot better than most people would. And so
well,
I
I
give her
mean,
a lot
you
of
got to
like big
remember
points for
too.
that.
I mean, George Lucas handpicked her, so I mean, he must have
True.
saw something in her. You know
And
what I
same thing
mean?
he did with Dave Filoni, handpicked him
Right.
too.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm on board.
Um, so a lot of cool things. I'm really excited to see what she's learned and how she applies it to the future of Star Wars.
I second that.
Um, so that's all the news that we have to cover on that. So we're gonna dive into episode 10 of the Bad Batch, called Common Ground. I actually found this episode really interesting only because a lot of people call it a filler episode. And the thing with Dave Filoni, when he writes a story or he's involved in a story, nothing is ever just a filler episode. It has something bigger to the story. And I
Hmm.
felt this one kind of added to a lot of lore because we jumped through the Clone Wars and we see the Separatists as like the bad guys. Like they're completely, oh, let's kill the droids. The Separatists, they're bad guys. They have these bad intentions on the whole government of the galaxy. And this one, we kind of see the Separatists as the Empire and the Clone Wars. And so we jump into the Empire actually taking over, and we get the first senator who is like, okay, all right, go. The Empire's here. Let's go dress your people, and let's get them to really. Yeah, so we get through the Clone Wars where we see the Separatists. I kind of always liken them to the Empire just because I felt like they're the bad guys. And so now you have the Clone Wars are over and you have the Empire is completely taken over. Most of the episodes that we've seen so far have been Republic owned uh, companies. And so this guy, I think, was it Senator Singh? The Empire's like,
Senator
all right,
Singh, yeah,
this is what you're going to go tell your people. This is what we expect from
separatist.
you.
Center.
We're taking over now, so go tell them what they need to hear from us. He gets up there and he
Hmm.
starts giving his whole speech. And halfway through it, it's kind of interesting because he's a separatist senator and he starts going, wait a minute. this is not,
Not right.
this isn't right. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
And so he starts speaking, and then all of a sudden you see the Imperial officer behind him is like, "Oh, arrest him!" And so the clones go up and arrest him. You get to see the tank. The tank goes over and starts intimidating the crowd as they start rallying up. They start running away,
Yeah.
and the Empire starts to show its true color. And you kind of see the beginnings of the Empire and their forcefulness.
It's so strange too because we're used to the Clone Wars, like you said. We're rooting for the Republic. We're all about the clones, and the Separatists, like you said, are the bad guys. Because I mean, they're basically the bad guys throughout the prequel Star Wars. That's all we've known them as. And we get to the Bad Batch, and the tables have turned. Now we're looking at the clones as the bad guys. We're looking at the Republic. Everybody that's loyal to the Republic pretty much is loyal to the Empire for the most part. And it's strange
Basically,
that you
yeah.
see these separatist leaders that we thought were the bad guys, are looking at this and saying, okay, this empire is supposed to do away with the Republic, do away with separatists. We're all united. But then this
It's
guy is
supposed to
doing what
save
he's told,
us.
and he's like, yeah, he's like, okay, this isn't right. They're not, So it's interesting to see a different kind of perspective on the separatists. It's really fun. So
And to me, that adds a lot more depth to the story because a lot of it is just like, okay, well, the Republic is super like accepting of their empire, so you would assume that separatists would be the same way, but it turns out the separatists are the ones that are questioning things. It's like, oh, whoa, 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 what you're doing here isn't right. And
well,
so he ends up getting it.
they also got all their droids shut down, so they're probably pissed off too.
Yeah, I can imagine that. They're like, oh yeah, our army is done, so now we have to rely on
Yeah,
the clones. So
or their main economic you know income machine there. So
yeah, exactly. And so that kind of like builds up the whole point of this whole episode is like you get the mission of the Bad Batch is that they're here to go rescue the senator who is a friend of Sid.
yeah,
And because of this mission, the Hunter deems it too dangerous for Omega to join. So this kind of gives like a whole side story to Omega and kind of shows a little bit more character building on her part. It kind of shows how she's important to the whole Bad Batch team. So they go off on their own mission while she stays behind with Sid, who Sid is a little reluctant to watch behind. And Hunter's kind of a little hesitant because, like, okay, I'm going to leave Hunter with you. So I'm kind of hesitant, but she's like, you know what? You guys are doing jobs for me. So it's my best interest to make sure that she's safe. So I'm not going to double cross you or any of that.
hmm
And we found out Omega is actually a little bit more important than we thought she was.
she's pretty good at gambling.
A little bit, just a little bit, enough to clear an entire debt.
Quick side note before I forget too. Forgot to mention that Raxus, the planet, featured where Senator Singh is. We are talking
Yeah,
about the the one that the Empire is controlled over right now, or is controlling.
yeah.
That planet was featured in Clone Wars, and we got to see it as a separatist occupied planet with Lux Bonteri, Ahsoka's friend. And
Oh yeah, that's right.
we got to see that kind of different side of the separatists because she goes over there with Padme, and they speak in the council there, and they're all kind of having different. You get to see the separatist side of things, and they talk about it a lot in that episode. So it's kind of interesting. They kind of echo that a little bit in this, but you get to see the end of it, with the empires or the imperial occupation.
Very true. And here's another fun fact that I'm looking on Wikipedia, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Is that
Yeah.
the Bad Batch begins with Order 66, an event that Star Wars Galactic Atlas dates to 19 BBY, which is Battlefront Twilight Company. And
Mm.
that establishes that the Stormtrooper Corps was founded by Clone Commandos, an event that appears in the 14th episode, War Mantle, because Star Wars Absolutely Everything You Need to Know dates the information of the Corps to 19 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Wow.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. Little side note, little cool,
That is
fun
really
to,
cool.
and that's kind of what I like about the whole Star Wars universe is that a lot of the stuff between the games, the books, the movies, and all that, everything. They're really doing what they can to really tie everything together.
Yeah, they just keep expanding the story.
Oh yeah, and so jumping back to the episode, uh, the Bad Batch goes to Roxas to rescue the senator. Uh, not gonna lie, one of my favorite things about the entire Bad Batch is just the whole. What's the word I want to use is how they really
Then,
do a lot of the shots. A lot of
yeah, I was gonna say the
like the way they
animation is great.
introduce everything. It's just like the scenery is just phenomenal. Just the way the
Yeah.
animation is done is just insane.
Well, I mean, we talked about before. You kind of look at Bad Batch as like a season 8 of Clone Wars. Um, each Clone Wars episode, if you go back to the Clone Wars movie and look at the animation versus now, you can see how much it's drastically improved. As you watch Clone Wars, each season seems to get a little bit better, a little bit smoother with the animation. And by the time you get up to season 7 of Clone Wars, I even remember going back and when Disney re-released, or not didn't re-release, but brought season 7 onto Disney Plus. I could tell the animation was significantly improved, and Bad Batch is actually even better than that season. So it's constantly getting better as the seasons go on. And so maybe the next season of Bad Batch will be even better.
Oh,
But
I
I
guarantee
love
next
the
season will be
animation.
better.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy the animation. I think it's really good. Definitely,
Not to
it's
mention the story.
it's
The
eye
story
candy.
always develops better.
Yeah, for sure. No, they're doing a really good job with the story too. So
But one of the main things,
yeah,
like they go to the mission, they go and they rescue the senator. I liked a lot of the action that they did there. One of my favorite things was being able to see them kind of commandeer a one of the ATSTs or the ATATs or whatever they're called.
ATST.
No, it's one of the Clone War ships. I know it's not ATST or ATAT, is the name of it, but they commandeer one of the walkers, which is really cool. And then it ends up going down. They escape through another tunnel and they're able to kind of get off the planet and complete their mission. And so one of the funny things is it's an ATTE walker. That's what it is.
Oh, the ATTE, the ones that
The
were
ATTE,
introduced
yeah,
on those were introduced at the Battle of Geonosis on Attack of the Clones.
yeah. Because the GSA droid asks how their plan would work, and so they use it as basically their way to escape. So Tech stuns the gunners and crew with a stun grenade, and so they use it to evacuate Alexander Singh um, out of there. And so they go into under tunnel while they're being chased by a bunch of clones. And like you mentioned before, it's kind of interesting how during Clone Wars, we're rooting for the clones to survive, and whenever a random clone, even if it was a main character clone, you kind of be like, oh, sad. This one was
Hmm.
like, yeah, kill those clones.
Yeah. Well, because ever since their chip went off, they basically turned into assholes.
Yeah, basically. 46 was not fun for them.
Which is kind of fun to explore in the show. Is you get to see certain clones that didn't get affected by the chip or didn't appear to be as affected by the chip.
Yeah, which jumps into the next episode, which
Yeah,
we jump onto Ryloth. And
yeah.
before we really jump more into that, I wanted to kind of talk about Hunter's reaction to Omega because we kind of briefly talked about her becoming a very like skilled in gambling. Hunter comes back and it's like, "Hey, I told you to keep a low profile," but Sid goes, "Well, because of her whole gambling, you no longer have a debt to me."
Yeah, she paid it off.
Yeah, she pays it off, so it's kind of good that she stuck behind and kind of like learned a little bit of her skills because she's able to see things. I want to say she's able to see things before they happen, kind of like a Jedi, but I don't ever really delved onto the whole Jedi aspect of her. So I'm kind of thinking that that's kind of where they're going with her, even though
She
they didn't
sees
really
she
explore it
sees
back to the
things.
season.
She sees things before they happen. That's why she appears to have such quick reflexes. It's a Jedi trait.
Exactly, it reminds me a lot of Anakin, and so I'm glad that they're not like rushing into that whole side story, even if that isn't a side story. I like
Mhm.
that they're kind of being very subtle with it.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. There's definitely a lot more uh, to Omega than I think we know. I think a lot of people suspect certain things, but
I think so
it's
too.
there's more explore there in her character. It's just really fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of what they do with her, uh, because they kind of explore a little bit more of her character in the next episode with Hera.
Yeah,
And spoiler alert, next episode we can see Hera, so we get to see a
yeah.
little kind of tie into Rebels. Jumping into this episode, what were your main thoughts on this episode? The
You're talking
Deadly
about this
Duel.
episode 11,
Yeah,
or you're talking about episode 10 or episode 11?
we're talking about episode 11, her connection to Hera, and just
Yeah,
Hera's whole story.
yeah. This was actually probably one of my favorite episodes in the show, just because you get that awesome tie-in with Rebels. You get to see Hera as a youngster with Chopper, and kind of some of her early roots in piloting, and her kind of her rebel spirit. You kind of see that, which the kind of the seeds of what she becomes later. Um, and of course, I really like Cham Syndulla, um, Ryloth, the Blurgs. You get to meet her mother. There's just a lot there. It's cool that you get to explore a little bit more their specific clone that they have, that doesn't seem to be completely affected by the chip. He actually has a little bit more independence, it seems like, in this episode, which is actually kind of interesting to explore. And he was actually a really good character too. I'm trying to remember what was his name. I'm trying to remember what his name was. There,
He was considered the charming looking clone trooper, the
the
handsome
handsome
the handsome clone trooper, Hauser.
Hauser. There we go, Hauser. Yeah, he was a really good character. But
I really
I
enjoyed
mean,
him
there's a
because
lot
he
there.
kind of. I'm sorry,
What
continue.
No, I was just gonna say, even back, going through the Clone Wars, even shoot Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, just seeing Orn Free Taa, the Senator of Ryloth, in the background, and I remember going through like the early Star Wars Insider magazines and the visual dictionaries, and Senator Orn Free Taa always had this look like you just don't trust him, and it's kind of
Oh
fun
yeah,
to kind of go in Clone Wars and Bad Batch. You really get to explore his character and see that he's a super corrupt uh, senator that just kind of goes with wherever the power is. He doesn't have any interest in his people, um, and it's
he's
it's
kind of a
it's interesting.
coward.
Oh, big time, yeah. And he's definitely screwing the planet to to do whatever whoever's got the power. He's always willing to do their bidding over his the interest of his people. Um, but no, there's a lot going on in this episode that's really good. That I very much enjoyed. I don't know what you think.
Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. Like, I know a lot of people complained about it because it didn't really focus too much on the Bad Batch, but in my opinion, I think the Bad Batch is more about the clones themselves. Like, we have our main Bad Batch characters, the ones that have special abilities,
Yeah.
but I think this one was more, I think, focused on Hauser because
Hmm.
from the beginning of the season, the moment that we saw Order 66 happen, the clones, their armor completely changed to clean white. There's
Hmm.
no differentiation between any of them, and
Yeah.
they all kept their helmets on. This episode, we had Hauser had his helmet off most of the time. His armor was still colored and painted,
Yeah.
which we haven't seen with any clone in the Bad Batch seasons or the season in general. And so I think it was kind of focusing a little bit on the Bad Batch being the ones that the chip didn't really function on.
Sure.
And so,
I I,
so it's
I
kind of
know
really
that.
just kind of cool to see how he just kind of interacted with the Empire and how the Empire didn't really force him
Yeah.
to focus on a lot of the what the other clones were doing. We're going to see a little bit more in the next episode.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, it's definitely interesting to see it, the Bad Batch. Yeah, you're talking about how like some people might have been upset they didn't just focus on the Bad Batch, but it's also just fun to see this timeline in Star Wars, to see the transition from the Clone Wars era to the Empire, and this is a perfect way to do it. And in Rebels, it was farther. in the future more towards the rise of the rebellion against the Empire. That was pretty much the start of the war. But it's kind of fun to see that transition for this period, and that's one thing I just enjoy a lot in this show is just from episode to episode, you just keep seeing the Empire just taking over planets and controlling them, and you see it again in this planet, just like we saw in the last one on Raxus, where they're controlling the Separatist planet. Now we're seeing them control the people of Ryloth, and they're basically trying to get them to do the exact same thing to completely submit to the order of the Empire, and the people don't really seem too interested to do that, and they're looking at Cham Syndulla, their leader, or their the kind of the warrior they looked up to, pretty much has been fighting for their freedom, their liberty, for the last however many years, and he even seems kind of like he's submitting to the Empire, but he's not. He's kind of saying things like,
He's
hey,
more
calm
neutral.
down. Yeah, he's more neutral, exactly. But you could tell he doesn't really believe what he's saying. He
He's
doesn't.
tired.
Yeah, he's been fighting. It's unfortunately the fight's just begun, and there's a lot more to do. But
I
you
mean,
could
you
tell
kind
that
of
he
look at it
knows.
this way. It's like you kind of look at him like he's been fighting against the Separatists for so long,
Yeah.
and the
My
clones are
gosh, now
very
there's another
familiar to him
force to yeah. There's an
because
even
the
bigger force for them to
clones,
fight now.
exactly, yeah, the clones have fought alongside him for so long, and that's kind of why Order 66 works so well. Is that the Jedi didn't
Hmm.
expect the clones to turn on him, and so
Yeah, and
Cham is
people
kind
are
of like a
and
little
people are
bit
key, and
more.
people have loyalty. People have loyalty to these clones because they've basically won the war for them and fought for them and protected them, and now they're submitting loyalty to these people, but they don't realize it's not good,
Exactly, and
So
that's where Cham is. Cham is like, hey, we should trust these clones because they fought alongside us to save us. So they're demanding that we take up our weapons. Well, they're going to come here and occupy us. We should trust them because they've been trying to save us the whole time. So let's just take up our arms and kind of submit to them. But even Cham even notices that there's something different. But he's just so exhausted of fighting that he's just like, you know what? I'm going to trust them. And it's
I think
his
he's also
friends.
cautious.
Yeah, he's cautious. I think that's the best word to do it. And his wife and his daughter and I forget what his friend's name was in the episode where I was like, no, 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 don't submit, don't submit. We're trying to take away our weapons so we can't
Yeah,
defend ourselves.
yeah,
And her, you get to see Hera and Chopper. They're kind of like the whole time. They're uh, they're spying on the mining station.
yeah, yeah. The kind of like kind of what they're up to in Rebels, always on some type of mission, snooping around and getting intel.
Basically. And it's kind of cool that we kind of get like a prequel to Rebels. We kind of get to see uh, where Hera kind of like started off
And it's
and
funny
why
that
she had it.
but she has that Ryloth accent
Yeah,
in
in
Rebels.
Rebels she doesn't.
She doesn't, and she ends up. It's funny when you watch Rebels when they actually have the episode with Cham, and she all of a sudden has her accent when she talks to him, because that's how she actually talks. It's just kind of funny.
I mean, you can kind of think of it. I know people from other countries that kind of pick up different accents for the country that they're actually living in.
Hmm.
But then they actually get around people that they're familiar with, and all of a sudden their accent kind
They
of like
start talking
switches
like it.
on.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's
Yeah.
even you can even kind of equate that with personalities. Some people have different personalities with different people, but
Hmm.
you get someone from the past that they're more comfortable with, or that they're used to having a different personality with. All of a sudden comes out just because of the association,
Hmm.
and so
Definitely.
that's kind of one way to, I guess, you can kind of explain it from a
Yeah. No, for
psychology
sure.
from a psychologist perspective.
So it's funny how well, it's not funny, but it's interesting how when Harry gets taught, you can see that Admiral Howe does not want to. Um, he doesn't want to reprimand them. He's kind of like he's like, all right, look,
Hauser,
hey, sorry, Hauser. That's how I give him a nickname, Hal for short. No,
you're good.
Hauser.
You're good.
He based no, but you know what I mean. Like he brings him to Cham, and he's just like, hey man, look, she can't keep doing this. I can't keep protecting her. I mean, you got to get this girl under control. Like you're kind of putting me in a tight spot here. You can tell he doesn't want to discipline her, but he knows the Empire is going to make him if they can't get under control, you know. So
basically.
she's just like in Rebels, you know. She's basically she's up to snooping around and finding out intel.
But brings
But
another interesting thing to the Bad Batch clones. You have this
mhm,
clone that is just questioning things. Any
yeah,
other clone during Order 66 would have been like, "Oh, she's a spy executor, bringing her
yeah,
straight to the Imperial leaders." This one's
yeah, for
like,
sure.
I don't feel right about this. Cham, do something about it because I'm in a moral obligation here. I have orders I need to follow, but at the same time, I don't believe in those orders. So work with me here.
Also, they keep having more and more clones showing up on the planet when the deal was they were supposed to be leaving, and
True.
it's just
Yeah.
getting so they're really just kind of playing with these people. You know, they're telling them things they want to hear, but that's not the reality.
Yeah, and that's the way of the Empire. The Empire tells you a bunch of stuff just to get you to believe it and to follow along with them. And in reality, they want to maintain control. And
Yeah.
if speaking of like Champ, because like once Farrell keeps talking about like everybody's loyal to Champ,
Hmm.
and so that creates a huge problem. So they need to bring in more of an occupying force in order to maintain order. Because if they're loyal to this one senator and he tells them to do one thing, and they rise against them, they need the manpower to be able to stomp it down as soon as it happens.
You know what the whole setup of this is gonna be kind of funny.
Probably that's his name. It's
The whole
Chance friend.
the whole Ryloth setup kind of reminds me a lot of The Hobbit. In Lake Town, you got this kind of
Okay,
sleazy sort of master that's kind of in charge. That kind of reminds me of Orin Free-Taa. And he might be smooth with his words, and maybe that's how he got his position. But the hero of the people is actually Bard the Bowman. He reminds me of Cham Syndulla. He's kind of just like Bard. Cham's kind of he's kind of fought for the people. He's kind of been that kind of hero, but he's not the politician. Um, he basically people all look to him, but he's kind of at this point where he's just kind of like, hey, you know, just you got to listen to your leader, or whatever. You know, we're just going to do what they want. But you could tell he doesn't believe it, and then ultimately, you know, Cham ends up kind of rebelling, and people end up just kind of looking to him. It just kind of reminds me of. And there's other stories like that too.
yeah, that's actually really interesting. I never thought to like really liken it to the Hobbit.
No, when you were talking about, I was just like thinking about it, and it's honestly more the way they do the movies. You get this fat sleazy guy, and then you got Bard, who's kind of like the more warrior type of guy, and then everybody likes him really. You know, they all look to him,
True.
but he's not the politician, so he's not smooth with his words, but he's definitely the hero, and that's kind of what Cham Sadula kind of reminds me of that. He's the hero of the people, but he's not the
Yeah,
politician. You know, he's not corrupt.
and because of that,
He's a realist.
they're trying to find a way to really like bring him down. It's like, okay, got this guy. We can't really arrest him because that's going to cause a whole martyrdom or rise up. We can't kill him.
Exactly. The same thing. It's very
So
similar. Yeah.
so they're waiting for like an opportunity to really like take control of it.
Take control
And
of him. Yeah.
so,
So
and
they have
unfortunately,
a setup.
Hera creates that opportunity because she goes with Gobli to
Hmm.
meet the Bad Batch because they're trying to find weapons to fight against the Empire.
Yeah.
And so she kind of becomes that excuse for the Empire to really go against them.
Hmm. She's trying to. She's a traitor and
Yeah,
blah
and
blah.
this is where,
And then yeah.
and so this is where she gets to meet Omega. But on her way, Crosshair's not stupid because he's there. He's like, okay, I already know what's going to happen. So he tags her ship.
He's able to follow him.
Yeah, and that's one thing that sucks is like you have the Bad Batch, but then you have Crosshair who gets put onto the Empire team, but he's just as smart as the rest of them and a
Yeah.
little bit more cunning. And so it's like, oh crap, Crosshair is here, so you know something's gonna go down.
Yeah.
And so he takes our ship, knows when they're coming back, and before you jump on how they come back, I actually really like the interaction that Omega had with Hera.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see them meet. Both
because we
talking
get to
about like,
see like Hera's like, because she's a great pilot by the time we get to Rebels, and it's kind of cool to kind of see her origins with it.
yeah, it's cool to see that she like learns a lot from Sham's friend.
Yeah, and then even Omega teaches her about the ship, and Hera's like, "Oh, have you ever flown a ship before?" She's like, "No." Hunter tells me I need to know everything about the controls before I can even attempt to fly a ship.
We even saw Hera flying the ship, and then
The next episode, yeah,
yeah, and then they're basically telling her, hey, you can't land yet. You know, you're not there.
yeah.
So
So it was really cool to see that. And so they head back to Ryloth after they acquire weapons from the Bad Batch, and this is where like the meat of the story like really comes down and really sets up for the next episode
yeah,
because Harry gets caught by the Empire and what's his name, Admiral Kanto or Kant, I forget his name. I forget the Admiral's name in this series. I don't know if you can think of off the top of your head.
I'm like going through it.
Admiral
We,
Rampart. Admiral
I was gonna say
Rampart.
we already said it. Yeah, it's Admiral Rampart.
Yeah, Rampart. He comes down
Such a
and
jerk.
oh, he is,
He,
but he's brilliant.
he,
He's very
he is,
brilliant in how he conducts a situation because he uses one free as bait.
and he's able to take him out too. He's able to take out the lead Ryloth politician at the same time. Get what he
Yeah,
wants by setting up the Syndulas.
exactly. And so he comes out and says, "Hey, guess what? Hera was caught smuggling in weapons." And Cham is like, "Oh no, she can't be captured." So he goes down there to see what's going on, and he gets a hold of a weapon to threaten Orange Free Todd because he knows Orange Free Todd is kind of a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife basically tells him, "This is not what you need to do. Don't do this in front of Hera. This isn't who you are." And he's like, "You know what? You're right." But Rampart was smart to have Crosshair set up an entire perimeter around the whole situation.
Take him out.
And so Marjorie Todd's like, "Oh no, let's not give up. We can fight. We can fight." And Rampart's acting like he's a captive. He's like, "No. Let's do everything they say because they're in control." But
Mm-hmm.
Rampart was already one step ahead, and so he gave the signal, and Marjorie
He was
Todd
he
got
was he
shot.
was just trying to just keep him distracted so they could set him up.
Basically, yeah, Senator Ta, that's his name, and
Yeah, Orin Frita.
yeah, Senator Ta for short.
Yeah.
And even then, Hauser even steps in and says she's just a child. Like he's trying to defend her at this point. She's like she's just a child. And so we get a little bit more character development out of him.
Which we're gonna see a lot more
And
in the next episode.
yeah,
Which is really it's really cool to see where that guy goes.
yeah,
He's
because
awesome.
Hauser is very hesitant to take orders on this, but he's like, you know what? All right, let's do it. And
Yeah.
so Senator Todd gets shot, and that sets up the whole arrest for Cham Syndulla and works more on the Empire's agenda. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, I really like this whole night battle that goes on.
Yeah, I like the whole thing with the walker. They control that walker.
Yeah, everything on this episode was phenomenal.
Yeah. Again, really good animation, really good cinematography. It's just really cool returning to Ryloth and seeing Ryloth kind of designed in this new Bad Batch style was really cool too. Um, and then of course, you know, it's strange because it just feels the whole world of what's going on right now feels darker. The Empire taking control, things have changed. You just feel that in the vibe of everything going on in the whole, you know, galaxy. You can feel that rift.
And you really get to see the struggle between a lot of the senators because I think this is really developing the whole rebel scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got Bail Organa from the start is like, oh, nope, this is bad. Then you got the separatists that are just like kind of questioning it as it happens. And then you got
Yeah.
the Republic ones that are just like, yep, let's completely roll it in. Let's not even question anything. Let's just jump right into the Empire. If you have anything else you wanted to add.
No, dude. I just I look forward to the next episode. I look forward to the next I it's it kind of shows the style. So some of these really cool episodes. There's a lot to look forward to if they do another season of the show. There's a lot of potential. Um, but
Yeah,
overall, I really
and
enjoyed this. I like this episode. This episode was really enjoyable. I like
yeah, and
I like the I don't mind the fan service episodes, but like
neither
you
do
said,
I.
it's not
Like
just
a
yeah
lot of people complain because there's a lot of the Bad Batch, but I think people are just so focused on the main characters being the Bad Batch that we don't look at Hauser and what happens in the next episode as Bad Batch clones either. And
right
so this is kind of more about the clones themselves and what continues to go on. And so in
exactly.
season 2, I really hope that they kind of focus a little bit more on this idea that they're building up, and we get to see a little bit more of Hauser and maybe some other clones. Because I know later in the season we get to see what Greg, kind of a little bit spoiler alert, but we'll get more into that later.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. That one that's another one that kind of ties us into Rebels as well.
yeah,
There's some fun stuff with Gregor.
yeah,
They
and a lot of people are
kind
saying
of
like
yeah
the Bad Batch is like a Rebels prequel, but I think it's just tying things together. That's all it
yeah
really is. It's just tying things together. It's not really a prequel. It's just tying
yeah.
everything
It's
together
kind of
and
doing its
building a depth of the story,
well, it's kind of doing
which is
its own
really cool.
thing.
It has
Yeah,
to.
yeah. It's kind of doing
And
its
there's
own
a
thing at the same time, bridging the existing storyline.
world
Yep,
because it takes place in the same timeline, so it ha- it has to tie into a lot of the stuff that people are familiar with. So
definitely,
these two
definitely.
episodes were fantastic. Like I can't wait to jump into the next one and be able to talk to you guys about what's going to happen with the future of the clones because I have some theories and some ideas. Uh, but guys, I know Christmas is right around the corner. So be sure to check our links below. We have some great merchandise that we think that you and your loved ones would enjoy for the Christmas. Some great T-shirts, and don't worry, the discussion doesn't end here. Jump in on our Instagram, jump on our Discord. Links are down below. Follow us and let us know what you think. Talk to us. We love to discuss Star Wars with everybody. Shoot us a DM, jump on one of our posts, whatever is more comfortable with you guys. But we have tons and tons of content. We've got a lot of plans that are going to be coming forth starting in 2022. So stick with us. And honestly, it's going to be a good year. We're excited for all the content that's going to be coming out. So let us know what you think. So this is Echo
Absolutely.
2 out. And
This is and this is Echo 5 out.
all right, may the force.
Be with you.
All right, till next time, guys. Take care.
Take care, guys.